Hello, Cullen Hable here again. In the second of these how-to, like instruction theory videos, I'm covering an application of needs-based segmentation, just the basic perceptual mapping. The downside is I've got a couple of slides from the marketing lecture that I've done as I walk through that, the JAM version, the Berenberg versus Coddy's JAM worked example. So I've got a couple of perceptual maps. I do quite a bit of writing on the board, which you don't see from the computer screen. But as we go, you'll get a look at it, and it's the first talk about positioning that we do regarding the perceptions and the needs-based segmentation framework that I use so often in marketing. Location is better thought of as an attribute, but for sure, image, price, taste, and then there's that whole subjectiveness of what that is. That's what Ben had been saying. That whole subjectiveness of what taste is, and of course the wine, not the wine snobs, the wine technologists do their very best to try to make it less subjective, but it's such a personal thing. Anyway, and actually they're all what we call intrinsic cues. Intrinsic cues to quality, and that's what the winemaker's responsible for. You know, the right sort of fruit and acid balance, and the right sort of tannin, however that all works. And then these sorts of things: brand, price, image, a whole bunch of things down there is what the wine researchers call extrinsic cues to quality. And the same thing there, to quality. But we're just back in that game, just as we did with Berenberg Farms or the JAM business. We're just back in that game. And my past PhD supervisor, Professor Larry Lockshan's the head of school down the road. Simone is a friend of mine. She's back in Germany now. But this was the study. Basically, they went through and they said, "All right, well, let's work out what our what the things are that you can put into a bottle of wine, the extrinsic cues that you can put onto a bottle of wine, really." And they went through this process. They ran a choice experiment. They simulated a shelf, and look at this. So, remarkably reminiscent of what we just did recently. Closure, label style, medals, great variety, country, price, store rating, expert rating. And then it does get really a bit technical here. They manipulate these variables into you know, a screw cap that's stately, that's got no medal, and is a Shiraz, combination of attributes, and then ask them to choose which one do you think you would buy, which one. And so the shelf experiment, they run people through repeated choice where they do this type of thing. Repeated choice where they manipulate. You can see cork closure, screw cap closure, manipulated with stately versus cartoon type label versus classic style French, and price tiers and all of that. And they put people through over and over and over, and then sure, they went ahead and got results. And this is clearly what they, at least the beginnings of finding their results, that the store rating accounted for 31% of the driving of consumer choice, the rating that comes from an expert in the country, and then strangely the price being what we call a surrogate indicator. So if you tell somebody that this is a $50 bottle of wine, you put as you would know, you put $50 on a bottle of wine, there's a certain bunch of customers that'll go, all right, I'm buying this for something important. This is my insurance bet. It's worth $50 for me to insure against being embarrassed. Surely they wouldn't sell me a crap wine at $50, right? So they reach for and so that price. And then country, again, surrogate indicator of quality. There is shocking French I haven't seen or tasted any shocking French wine, but I've got English friends who say, oh yeah, some of the stuff that comes out of France is shocking. But then, of course, my English friends are in no position to talk because there's no wine comes out of England. So again, surrogate indicator of quality, price, okay, or let's reach for France. And so Larry's research indicated that we're a little bit, Australia as a country of origin is a bit of an insurance bet as well with these Chinese consumers.
Kind of know, a while ago, and it's just an aside, there was some research also that showed packaging.
Yeah.
So if it was in a box, so that it had a pill as well, which I
Yeah.
thought was really interesting.
Yeah, outer labelling,
Yeah.
add-ons, all of that, and that actually goes to you know, we've already got our 10 attributes that we've got for the jam, but then yeah, what if we were to put and you've got to measure it through a realistic thing like that, rather than just saying, oh, would you buy it if it had a fancy looking box on it? Because you're not really doing valid research then, because you just, if it had a fancy looking box, no, I don't care about that crap, it's what's inside that matters. But when people are put into a real life thing like that, but yeah, certainly. And that's probably the last word that we need to say on this at the moment is everybody keeps adding attributes and they go, right, I'm going to win on this one, and they put an outer bit of labelling on it, or I don't know, a Save the Whales sticker on it. You know, $1 for every bottle that you buy goes to rescuing the buffaloes or whatever. And it's like they just keep adding attributes, and then it becomes increasingly complex. But that was cool. That brought us a little bit. I skipped over the content of the other week, but we'd sort of got to this point with I should actually get this showing. Yeah, I'd raced through here and yeah. This is probably I was pointing out, but this is probably where where it becomes practical. The idea of segmentation, working out how the customer base is organised, and we know what our favourite approach to segmentation is: needs-based segmentation. So we get measurements of what sort of needs are there. Targeting. What sort of segments do we wish to satisfy? What is it? What do we base the targeting decision on? We realise, we'll go back to jam. We realise we've got image conscious, price conscious, social conscious, and patriotic SA. When we look at those groupings of people as a company, what do we make our choice on whether we want to go after the price conscious or the social conscious or the patriotic?
Based on sales.
Certainly on the size of the segment, on the amount that you can sell to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon that's a really important one. Great idea. Great idea. Let me go to what. So. So Ben mentioned, based on sales, how much can we sell to them? And when we do the theory of segmentation, is it a substantial segment? Yeah, that's definitely worth keeping in mind. But again, if we decide we want to go for the price-conscious consumer, what would be something that would make us? So let's say we're Berenberg Farm, or let's say we're Granny's Pantry. You know, even Berenberg's a solid production facility. But imagine we're a little cottage industry, and we think to ourselves, oh look, there's substantial segment. Look at all the supermarket Cotties jam that gets sold. It's clearly that sells to a price-conscious segment. But why would Granny's Pantry decide not to go for that price-conscious consumer?
Competition.
Definitely that it's competitive. Yep.
Element of quality.
Yeah, you make a decision about that you don't want to compromise your quality. But would Granny's Pantry be likely to have multiple tonnage of cook facility? Would they be likely to have automatic bottling lines? Would they be likely to have inkjet labelling of use by dates? Would they be likely to have the relationships within Coles and Woolworths to be able to put the volumes out around Australia? So that was me going around in an roundabout way to saying, really the targeting decision is often about your own company capabilities and aspirations. So certainly you've got an aspiration to sell a heap of stuff at a easy margin, at a fairly light margin. That's an aspiration. I'll go for volume rather than profitability. Or you've got an aspiration that we sell high quality product or whatever. So in large part, the targeting decision is about what your capabilities are and what you want to achieve. So that whole wish to satisfy is a thing. And then positioning. Positioning is what you do with each of those attributes. So and the marketing mix. The marketing mix being your product, price, place, promotion, and other those. The argument goes that you manipulate those to alter the perceptions that consumers have about these varying things. All right. The other week we've done that. The idea that, look, we'll put out a Cotties and we'll catch as much as we can. No. Let's say, I often think about this, the Frantello bottled water, okay? It's a market. It's just a market. They just want bottled water and forget the whole how bad it is for the environment, shipping all this water around and plastic and all of that. But the people who buy Frantello bottled water, a lot of the time they'll buy Frantello or they'll buy Woolworths' own brand or any of those, Ice Mountain or whatever those other brands are, just a homogeneous market that lets supply. In a way, there are, and go to the other end of the spectrum, we've got people who like, with jams, let's say, fruit, no sugar, a whole bunch of different segments, and then the company comes up with a marketing mix that can satisfy, that sort of runs the middle line for each segment. So concentrated marketing. Oh, my mistake. I'm reading my picture wrong. We decided we're only going for one segment, basically. And then companies with lots of capabilities, they can do a low sugar, they can do a South Australian produced brand, they can do all sorts of things, marketing mix to different segments. And it is worth just talking about this, that naturally all I ever do is I teach and show people how to do a two-dimensional perceptual map. So before I go any further, we'll take a break in about 10 minutes once I get us past this. But just that in as well. I promise I'll put that up to Google Photos soon. This is such a really cool little technique, and it's showing up there. The idea, we're selling ice cream. And we can vary 2 attributes. We can make ice cream sweet, and we can make it creamy. What do you think icy pole is when it's produced? It's basically cordial on a stick, isn't it? Frozen cordial on a stick, but sweet. Or, I don't know, Zupa Dupas or whatever. Highly sweet, but low on creaminess. I can't think of a. Can anyone think of some form of ice confection that is low on sweetness and high on creaminess?
Just vanilla ice cream, plain vanilla ice cream.
There's a fair bit of sweetness in that, isn't
I
there?
suppose you add to it, don't you? Add to the you
Yeah.
have chocolate and it's sweeter than vanilla.
Oh yeah.
Strawberry's sweeter than vanilla.
Yeah.
I think you can buy like dark chocolate ones, can't you? That wouldn't be as sweet.
You could go
Matcha?
like a
Organic
you
one.
could go a panna cotta.
Matcha's sweet though,
You
isn't
could
it?
go a panna cotta.
Yeah.
There's frozen yogurts. You can get frozen yogurt.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure there's coming up with good examples is a way to win when it comes to writing a marketing exam answer. Clearly, I'm failing. All right, but you can sort of see where we are. A great thing I often ask people in an exam is to take 2 attributes that you think are important and build a perceptual map, a 2-dimensional perceptual map out of this stuff. And I'll tell you, if we cover it now, then you know how lazy I am. We've covered it in class. Well, so what do we reckon? We put these on 2 dimensions. What do you reckon attributes we could do? I don't know, family sizes, and I want to see polarized ones. Family sizes and heritage branding. Polarized as far as consumer preferences. Value for money versus heritage branding. Yep, value for money. Value for money, heritage branding.
Can you say budget instead of value?
Yeah.
Not to be technical, but like value, I don't go to shops to not buy value.
Yeah, I know. And what is value? Value, you know, you can buy a $120,000 motor vehicle, and you can perceive that you've got a value. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm really always happy to run with it, because the worst is when people write the word price. Oh, this is low creativity. Budget positioning. Perceived value for money, all of that sort of thing. Trouble is, we haven't got a budget positioning attribute there, have we? But
Is that what was implied with value for money?
yes, yeah. So, but either way, you sort of know where I'm headed on that. We've already got. We can plot customers on there. So I'll just go with value from. Thanks, Ben. VFM, and we can have a red wine conversation about that, because it is a relevant point for
We
sure.
can start that now because we've got wine.
Yeah, I know. As I said, it's my last. I got value for money there. It's my last day before Dry July, so there we go. Value for money and heritage branding. Yep, good. Put those in. Make sure I know that what I'm looking at, and we can plot from 1 to 10. We can plot our customers here. 1 to 10, and 1 to 10. And so who's a 10? 10 on heritage branding, 2 on value for money. 10 on heritage branding, 2 on value for money, and that is, who's that customer?
Patriotic.
Patriotic?
Yep.
Great, patriotic. Okay. Where's our 5 on heritage branding, 10 on value for money. 5 on heritage branding, 10 on value for money, and that was price conscious. Who else is sitting there? We might as well plot everyone in there. 7 and 4. 7, 4. Somebody's in there. That's
Image conscious.
Image conscious, and the last one, 7 and 4, 1 and 10. 1 and 2. Ooh, 1 and 2. So I'm going to write down here. Social. Now, incomplete picture, isn't it? Incomplete picture because we've only looked at two variables. But it does help us at least map out. If we say that as a company we have control, or we have the ability to manipulate, remember always perception when we're talking here, perception of value for money, perception of heritage. And we've got customers that have plopped themselves all about there. So we might say as a targeting thing that, yep, we're Cotties, and we say, yep, well, let's go with this moderately heritage. You know, my dad picks the fruit that goes to Cotties, all of that, you know, just basic, boring, yeah, okay, well, we're Australian, that's okay. But we are value for money. We might decide that we've got the capability to do that. So product 1. Birrenberg Farm, heritage branding, so big out on the heritage branding. And as far as price, you know, they're not the $10 a jar bottle of jam, but you know, there's probably, let's just say, there's a nexus there that might be product 2. And you know what we're doing with that? Product 2, product 1 up here. And that goes right back to what we were talking about positioning. So we've got segmentation. This is how it's all broken up. Targeting. Well, wouldn't it be good if we went after the budget because we've got a shitload of production capacity? Or why don't we go for the heritage or image conscious because we're a 100-year-old farm in the Adelaide Hills? And that's an asset that we really do have. And there's a perception, at least in South Australia, there's a market-based perception that the word Birrenberg has heritage and Adelaide Hills and all of that sort of thing in there. So that's when we're into positioning. And that probably is a pretty neat, and one of the great values of doing this perceptual mapping approach is we might be able to see opportunities. Remember, it's an incomplete picture because it's only 2 attributes out of the 10 that we've got there. But we might say, well, is there an opportunity for an expensive brand that meets a whole bunch of that low on heritage and high on price? That's often a crap place to be trying to play in because low quality, high price, no one ever really wants that. But that's a reasonable start. Soon we'll get on to brand A, brand B, brand C, and perceptions of how they consumer perceptions of how they're going. And we'll talk about the compensatory decision rule. And the compensatory decision rule is a way that, you know, we argue that consumers make the decision about whether brand A or brand B is the better one. So that's where I left it in that class at the time. We had spoken about different customer groupings, needs-based segments, and also about how the relevant different, how a couple of variables can be used to create perceptual maps. An incomplete video for doing that, but I'm sure clever people can fill in the gaps on that. So that's what I'm suggesting you do. At some point, I'll probably do a worked example using SPSS where we actually build a factor analysis that creates that Christmas tree look of what the needs-based segmentation clusters are, and then say where we go on that. With SPSS, it's really pretty easy. We create the clusters, give a score,
maybe do a little bit of data transformation, and then go on and say, well, what's different about the heritage cluster compared to the value for money cluster? You know, the set of needs-based segments that have a need for a heritage strawberry jam compared to the segment that has a need for a value for money strawberry jam. You know, how are they different in those variables such as age, gender, income, you know, how much of a foodie they are. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. We'll I'm sure you want to see more. I'll probably have more of these slides, these presentations for you sometime. All right.